The suicide of a 15-year-old child in Kerala has reignited conversations on bullying and how it hampers the right to a dignified life of a child.
These children are just imitating behavior, trying to get attention, and then of course it's a big calamity, a big tragedy when some child loses out. One boy will complain about the other and all of them will get together and isolate that boy, especially if he's performing well. He's very performing well, whether it's swimming. So there is some amount of jealousy, which is a normal human tendency.
His mother has alleged that even after the death, the bullying has continued. So, is it right to see this as a children's issue, or all of us contribute to bullying in some way or the other, right?
Child goes back to society, child goes back to the family. We don't know what is happening there. We don't know what kind of bullying is happening to the child there. Child drew a big mother's figure and an equally big child's figure, and this father was only a tiny minuscule little thing here. So I asked her, what is this?
We were talking about immaturity earlier, right, among children, but do you think that is also present in the minds of adults as well, like the unhealed trauma of the past?
Yeah, that's exactly, you hit it on the nail, a lot of unhealed trauma in adults.
The suicide of a 15-year-old child in Kerala has reignited conversations on bullying and how it hampers the right to a dignified life of a child. Mihir's body was found on January 15th. Later, his mother filed a complaint with the police, alleging his classmates bullied him and harassed him over a period of time. Joining with us is Nayak, former member of National Commission for Protection of Child Rights and former chairperson of Karnataka State Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Ma'am, welcome to the conversation. There's a lot of discussion about bullying and ragging, and the terms are often used interchangeably. Is that right to do so, and what does it mean?
I think it's not very different, bullying and ragging. And right, we've been talking about ragging in the context of the college and, college. Bullying is also happening there. And more with the school context, we talk about bullying. And this Mihir's incident, of course, is very, very shocking.
It was only after his mother wrote a letter that we came to know that it was bullying. And there were also a lot of other reasons that the mother is alleging that contributed to the death. How do we see the whole incident? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. See, bullying doesn't start. It's a kind of an atmosphere that is already prevalent in the school. Who are these bullies? These are children of his age, 14, 15, 16, all. So these people come into this picture, they have some deep want. They want to imitate somebody whom they respect. They want to act authoritative. There is some huge vacuum in their own lives, and they want to get some benefit out of it, like asking. So these kind of children are there in school, and they're quite easy to identify. It's not very difficult to identify such children. Maybe it doesn't happen in front of the teachers. It happens in the peer group, in the playground, when they go out. So, but once you see a child in a school, in a class, who's a little bit withdrawn, who's a little depressed, who doesn't come to school or frequent, that is the time that, immediately teachers should take note. Why is this happening? Talk to the child. The trouble is, this is all a very personal, intensive intervention to attend to a child, and to, because these children who are bullies may not show that behavior in the classroom atmosphere. It may be between breaks when the teachers are not there. So what I feel, it is a lot of responsibility of the teachers to have very close observation of children. Whether a very high-performing child suddenly, his grades have fallen down. Why? There might be so many reasons. There must be something happening in the house. There must be something. So very many years ago, I remember when I just started my master's in social work, we had a team from Bombay who were school social work counselors. So these schools must have counselors and must not only, bring a refer to these children, but take on board these issues and make it as part of curriculum, as part of this. But schools, they charge a bomb these days, these heavy, expensive schools that parents send their children, but they don't want to invest in this. So I would not fully blame the bullies who are only acting out, and they're also youngsters, because really maturity doesn't come till about 24, 25, they say. So these children are just imitating behavior, trying to get attention, and then of course it's a big calamity, a big tragedy when some child loses out. not only through death, but even withdraws from academic, withdraws from family. So they're a very big issue, and it's not that everybody is keeping quiet. There's a lot of action happening already in the country.
Conversations around mental health of children are often ignored by mainstream media. Here at TNM, we don't take such issues lightly. We focus on stories that are related to mental health so that it continues to live even after the news cycle dies. Please support us and become a TNM subscriber today. When we say that children should have that environment to tell what they are going through in their life, how can schools ensure that there is an environment that is safe enough for them to?
Okay. See, different parties have all, like CBSE says there must be a committee. Child protection committees are already there as per National Commission and as per Government of Origin. But what happens is that even the bystanders who are watching, there are some children who don't like to get into this. I remember once in my own incident of my brother when some child misbehaved with a group. They at about on Sunday they broke open the car garage of the family and really mauled that car, hit that car, and did all sorts of things. My brother was a bystander, watched it, but he didn't even tell us that this happened. But when they opened the door the next day and they found this, so there are different ways that children bring out their angst, their anger, and bullies. Who are these victims also? If you think of the victims, they're normal children who are studying well. Maybe they flaunt something, or maybe they're too intelligent. Maybe they ridicule others. We don't know what they also do to trigger this. And maybe just like that, just a fancy that a group takes against a child. So we don't know the reasons why this happens.
Right. I remember a Malayalam movie that was released when I was a child. And it showed the elder sibling killing a newborn baby because of jealousy. So back then I didn't know, and I still don't know. Does that child qualify as a bully, or can we qualify generally children as bullies? Is that?
No, I don't think we can qualify children as bullies. When you see this kind of an aggressive behavior, bullying is actually a continued assault on another child, verbally, mentally, psychologically. So these things happens to a child, and these people who bully, these bullies I think we can notice that behavior, may not at the home, you can notice it in school, and people should be quick. So what happens when through the regular curriculum, if teachers talk about this kind of a behavior, you must introduce empathy, kindness, all these things should be part of curriculum, not only theory, language, maths, English, this thing, because these are skills that will take them forward in life, in their careers, wherever they are. But this is neglected in schools. So, teaching these finer social skills to children. And when a bullies bystanders, I fail to understand why in India, bystanders don't take any role at all. There are many children who watch. This is happening. They can easily report. They can confidently tell teachers that we see this is happening. Nobody does it because we don't have that culture itself. Even in my neighbor's house, I have worked with child marriage cases and abuse. When a neighbor hears a man assaulting a wife, they don't say anything. They just let it be. That's part of life. So this kind of a culture must change in our country. And for bullying, this must happen because others are noticing it. It's not that other children are not noticing it.
And cases of bullying is not a new thing, right? As with increase in social media, there is a higher visibility that is there among the society. But what are some of the cases that has shocked you?
Yeah, the bullying, I've also seen those children who qualify as children in conflict with the law. We call them children in conflict with the law, children who come and bully others. This is quite often in schools, government schools, we've had cases where they're instigated. You know what happens sometimes? The teachers don't want to abuse a child or physically pain a child. So they get the older boys to do it. They coach them to do it. In institutions also have seen that to correct a boy, suppose a boy is bedwetting or a boy is is complaining about something that is happening, some theft is happening, something. So they get the older boys to abuse the younger ones. So this is quite common. And even on the sports field, you can see whether it is badminton, whether it is cricket, whether it is where parents are investing so much of their resources to get children to work. We hear of cases where the one boy will complain about the other, and all of them will get together and isolate that boy, especially if he's performing well. He's very performing well, whether it's swimming. So there is some amount of jealousy, which is a normal human tendency. So I think that once we talk group work, take everybody on board. If it's on the games field, the physiotherapist, the parent, the trainer, the coach, everyone gets together. Similarly, in the school this thing, you have in school, under the RTA Act, you have the school management committee who are representative of parents. They should also take a very active role in this and ask, like you have standard operating procedures, this. So if this is given a mandate to the school management committees, they can say, has this been done? We would like to address, we would like to talk. And so kind of a monitoring, compliance is not given any importance because it is personal intensive. It doesn't, you don't have any tangible reports on that. So government teachers also are not interested. It doesn't contribute to their promotion, or it doesn't contribute that they have held so many sessions with children. So this culture must change.
So do you think recognition of teachers who inculcate such values, do you think recognition will lead to a better result?
Yeah, definitely. Now they're only recognizing teachers whose class performs well, whose schools get very high marks, etc. I think we should recognize the soft skills that these teachers have and teach them. And I'm not saying anything new, because I know that this curriculum is being changed. I know that all these things are happening, but implementing it is not happening. So who monitors that implementation? Parents cannot interfere and ask, is this happening? Because parents are also interested that the scores are good, the child performs well.
Right. Ma'am, coming to the law aspect of it, what is the difference when a child commits a crime and then an adult who does the same crime?
Okay.
What is
so under the Juvenile Justice Act, the child is, the definition of the child is up to 18 years old. Now, if a child is contrary to the law, it means that there are so many acts, the Juvenile Justice Act, the POCSO Act, the Right to Education Act, and the IT Act of 2000. So all these acts have provisions where some kind of abuse happens to the child and how to act. So they're all, they all come under the purview of law. In the Juvenile Justice Act, if a child performs like this, you have to go before the Juvenile Justice Board. And then you have something called a SJPU, where the Special Police Unit sits in almost every police station, and they have special probation officers who know how to handle children. So I don't think that this bullying immediately can lead to a reaction of going to the police station or filing an IPC and all. This really happens when somebody loses their life or limb or something like that. But I think that this kind of education to teachers, saying that this can lead to criminal filing a case against the child, and after, if the child is above 15 and there is a death, and under this amendment to suicide 306, the child can be even taken to incarcerated, and then if it's really violent, can be even sent to prison and 18. So it's a whole future of a child that is really spoiled. So I feel that there are laws. If you educate the teachers, if you have this everyone on board, from teachers, right from the a person who is the security guard, who's observing all this. Why are we forgetting them? The security guard, the gardener, the bus driver. That bus driver is watching. Like a child comes to sit, when he gets into the bus, he wants to sit in a particular seat. It is reserved because some friend of another is coming. So child is standing. So this kind of a thing should be, empathetic approach of everyone in the school environment, including the children, including the older child who may see this in a 10-year-old or 12-year-old. So this kind of a thing we have to introduce.
Right.
And recognize when something like this is happening in a particular school, make it a model, a replicable model, so that other schools can come and do it.
Right. My next question was on the same line. Do you think that bullying is a cultural issue, or should we, even if it's a cultural issue, should we take it case by case, or take proactive measures before something like this happens? What are your
I
thoughts on
feel
that?
proactive measures are very, very important, but they have no value. Nobody really monitors what proactive effort has happened in look at the government school system, because the parents don't have really a voice. They don't pay a fee. They can't demand anything. So the ambience in a government school is very different, where it's kind of a favor that the school is doing to educate children. It's not the right of the child to education. In government, if you go to the private setup, the private system is the right of the child, the right of the parent. So that's a difference. So these people are more alert. The private schools are more alert because they lose a student. But I feel it's a responsibility of everyone. And especially when most of our children are in the government system, I think a lot of investment has to go in there to see that all these acts are followed and this doesn't happen. Once the child is branded as a bully, then it's really, really difficult for the child. He's also a child after all, 15, 16, 17. He's only imitating somebody. He's trying to get attention. And parents, maybe there's a big gap in the whole. Maybe there's a marriage breakdown, parental breakdown. There is abuse within the family. He is abused. He's a victim of abuse. So all these things have to be taken into consideration and then we should act.
Right. Coming back to Mihir's case, his mother has alleged that even after the death, the bullying has continued. So, is it right to see this as a children's issue, or all of us contribute to bullying in some way or the other, right? What is
See, I can feel the pain of a mother to lose her child. I can feel that pain. And it's sad that this is continuing online. So I feel that schools have to take proactive measures to see why this is happening. I mean, already the parent has lost a child and this continuing negative notes about her child. It's very painful. And I think the government, the district education officer is there. What is his job? His job is to see it, to bring these children, make them feel empathy, feel some remorse. Even if you can't pin who actually bullied the child and made him lick that seat or put his head inside it. I think that if you bring them all together and talk in a general fashion what has happened, give them examples, and even let a child bring in the child and make him see the victim. Let the victims talk to them and tell them this is what is happening. This is how I feel. But see what happens. Child is 6-8 hours in school. Then child goes back to society. Child goes back to the family. We don't know what is happening there. We don't know what kind of bullying is happening to the child there. So it's very difficult for the child to comprehend and understand where to draw the line. I should not behave like this, but I am a victim of this.
So basically, a bully can also be bullied.
Yes, definitely. Many of them do bullying because they want attention. They are the victims. There is some big gap in their own lives and they are trying to get it. Or there is jealousy, an element of jealousy. That something they want, maybe, some creature comfort, something they don't have. So there is anger. So this anger is directed on that child and then they're able to garner. Bullying doesn't happen individually. One child doesn't bully another child. It is a group. So this person is quite influential in the group to be able to get others also to subtly bully this other child. And it is sad for the victim who doesn't express it, and it's building up. It's like a volcano, they say, that suddenly erupts. We don't know how. I've had a lot of children, not only bullying. When teachers have scolded the children, 12-year-old committing suicide. Together. During my tenure, I went where two children were reprimanded by a teacher and they committed suicide. 12-year-olds. I cannot imagine how much pain these children have experienced.
Do you think that the language of the children has changed these days? Because a lot of the online language, online lingo, contributes to what was seen as taboo back then seems to be normalized now.
Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad. This technology and its development and the cell phone and the mobile phone, even an institution where I was heading recently, that they give them tabs. Schools give them tabs to do homework. Teachers feel it's easier. They don't have to give paper, pencil. So they also start giving all the work on the tab. These children come and they're not able to, we are not able to supervise. 30 children are in the institution. And nobody's able to supervise that they're doing the homework or they're seeing this language and these games. And the other day I took one of my grandsons to see they play with these games, and wanted to play in these games. I took him and I was shocked to see life-size human beings shooting others. So what is the child's what is really the child being inculcated? The life-size thing on the screen, and there's holding a gun, and that person is going on shooting, and you get points on how many persons you shot. So when you're showing this kind of a stuff to children, it gets into the psyche. So instead of having a gun, like this is what happened in the US, instead of having a gun, they're using verbal assault, physical assault. It's really sad.
But a lot of parents feel that they have limitations in telling the child, setting the screen limit, and asking them not to consume the media. So as when it comes to law, like juvenile justice board or something, when a crime happens like this, how do they deal with getting back the child into the society, reinculcating him into the society?
Everything is very, very superficial. The Juvenile Justice Board is headed by a judge, and then you have 2 social workers. Not necessarily all of them have got some experience in working with children. They might have been just, appointed there on influence or whatever it is. But they don't dwell into the life of a child, into the family of the child. It is a family's responsibilities. And what happens, most parents, they themselves are sitting with the phone the whole time in the house. So how do they guard these children? How do they prevent this happening from children? And I've seen small children, they go to a restaurant, they want peace, they want to order some food, and then they just give the phone, and they have on stand, they put the phone, and the child will be watching something. Even things like cartoons like Tom and Jerry, if you look at little things like Tom and Jerry or Charlie Chaplin, which are supposed to be meant for children, there's a lot of violence there. There's a lot of trickery there. So all these things get into the children's head, and they're just kind of showing what mirroring what they're already seeing on screen at home.
So do you think a awareness should be created on the site? Like,
I think that the only thing that can change this bullying culture is when the teachers themselves, the school ambience, the school itself has a culture of talking about it as part of regular classes, like in between, telling teachers also that when you're teaching science, you're teaching physics, anything, bring in these issues little bit, interrelations, interpersonal relationships, how to improve it, how to have a happier life, how to get along with everyone. So these things should not only be like a special model. Like earlier when I was studying in the convent school, used to have one class, moral science, where only moral science, was taught. I think this should become part, because having a mobile, now a child of 14, 15 has a mobile. So all these things must be brought into the school space, because that is where children spend a lot of their time. Right. If they go home, then the home is also sometimes it's very busy, where parents are trying to, achieve so much, they're trying to give them comfort. So parents also don't, inculcate these habits within children. Do some reading, do this, go and help somebody else. And, grandparents are there, something, all these things are not taught these days. Right. How to come up is what it happens. But it's obvious when bullying happens, and in every school, I would say, without exception, some form of bullying must be happening. And if you train or expose everyone who's interacting with the child, you can definitely reduce it or arrest it fully.
Right. There seems to be an increasing trend of mental health crisis across the country, especially among young children that are below 18 years of age, right? Recently in Kerala, just before this happened, a student threatened to kill his teacher after he confiscated his phone. So what do you see among such cases? What is the trend that contributes to such cases?
See, if you want to become an engineer, you study 5 years. You want to become a doctor. To become a parent, there's no education at all. People just have children, 2 children, 3 children, 1 child. And then there is so much of indulgence that is happening in homes. I'm seeing it everywhere in my family, in my extended family. There's so much of indulgence happening when you have 1 child and 2 children, lot of admiration, lot of things given to the child. So the child feels that everything is, he can get whatever he wants and all that. So it's very difficult for the child when he gets into a setting, a social setting, and he's not able to handle some kind of obstruction to his to satisfying his ego, because the parents are doing much of it. So I feel parenting is also a very important place where some kind of training must happen, for parents. How do you parent a child? This whole, because the way they were parented is very different from how they are parenting today. So much of advances is happening. So I think that schools, because where can you catch parents? The catchment area for parents is schools. And they have this, mandatory or obligatory parent-teachers meeting once in a way. In fact, I'm also one of the guardians for one of my grandchildren. And they just have something like that, Naam ke Vaste something. I think this is a fantastic experience. Exposure for parents if they are brought and had, discussions, group discussions on parenting. Let schools introduce parenting. Let more especially in the government sector. These don't get an opportunity at all. They think that, just having children, sending them to school. So I think some kind of a parenting training, parenting exposure, group discussions. And the best people to do it will be the school management committees in all government schools. Let them have every month parenting, and let standard operating procedures be prepared. This should be done. And even in these Gram Sabhas, where you have child Gram Sabhas in Karnataka, for instance, these issues can be taken up. But nobody talks about parenting. Everybody thinks that you are born, it's in your blood. Parenting is in the blood, that you know how to parent. But I've heard of all sorts of abuse happening within families which is simply closed. And the child, when that hormonal change, 12, 13, 14, I can see very aggressive behavior. I'm seeing it younger and younger. 12, 13, 14, 15, they are actually physically even, trying to confront parents.
More students are being aggressive these
days. Because when they don't get what they want, and indulgence, like for example, Christmas comes, a birthday comes, parents are indulging these children so much. So the children are not able to accept a no in the school, and then when they see something happening in the class, something against their will, that like, reserving a seat. The child wants to sit down there. Poor child has come in, but reserved 4 seats because his friends are coming after 2. The child goes and sits down. And that is aggressive reaction. Immediately the child comes to knock the child, hit the child, and the fellow gets so terrified and scolded, he is willing to stand the whole way. So these kind of things.
What are some of the passive ways of bullying? Like the active way is violence, hitting other, and what are something that we tend to overlook?
I have seen lots of this, passing slips, making a funny jokes or a meme or something about one particular child in the class. So that is, passing slips is very important. And just making snide remarks, outside, or not involving him in a group. Normally in the school, I might have also been the cause of it, because when you make close friends, 2, 3 friends in school, you don't want another person. You want
isolation.
Isolate the child. Don't allow the child to get into the group because you already have a clique in your own class and you don't want. So these are subtle ways that children knowingly or unknowingly do it. So I think the teachers must, observe all this. Which is the child who's isolated? Who is the child who's abused? Try to get, I remember, and sometimes when you go to a new school, you are paired with another person. It's a new school, you're joining class 6, 7. I have moved 7 schools because my father was in the government. So every time I went to a new school, it was I remember the first day, whether it was class 2, class 6, class 8 or class 9 also, I went to new school. You get very apprehensive now. Who will you make your friend? Who will be nice to you? So they pair people, they pair children, and we try to do that also in the government setting. Try to see that, children who are empathetic, pair them with children who are new, children who are aggressive. So,
what about the society's gaze on the children who commit such crimes or are tend to be recognized as bullies, right?
Yeah, it's a big loss to society, huge loss to society. If a child, because I feel that every child is innocent, well-meaning, and it is the environment that has made this child into this. I would like to share something I read about the immaturity of children who are teenagers and things. There was a professor who was addressing a mixed group of teenagers and adults and told them there is a pond full of gold at the bottom and there are sharks also there. And how many of you would be willing to jump into that to get the gold? And almost without exception, these teenagers raised their hands and said they would be willing to take that risk. So this kind of a behavior is very typical, taking risky behavior, being, trying to be hurtful, mean to others. They don't realize the effect of that. So if this Mihir's incident has happened, and if this mother is, so visibly upset, I feel the people around her should take this as a campaign to see that this doesn't happen. And even these bullies can be converted, so-called bullies. If I believe that almost without exception, because I've worked with lots of children who were inclined to be perpetrators of offense. If you explain to them, if you make them, part of this process of talking to these people, talking to victims, you can. There is some retribution. They feel it and they can change the situation.
How successful are these efforts? Because have you come across something that, have you seen a child changing?
Yes, I've seen lots of children who have changed. Children who are angry with parents, very, very angry, aggressive, taking it out on an adult. Once you locate or once you identify the strengths of that child, every child has a strength, definitely. Somebody is good in art, somebody is good in reading, somebody is good in sports. Once you channel that energy into that particular area where the child gets recognition or gets some happiness, that way you can direct a child. But all this is, as I kept on saying, it's very personal, intensive. And adult has to take that role. Adult has to start that process. So in a school, it should be like if you have a full-time counselor or a child advisor, that person should motivate and get everyone across the board to do that. Right. But this doesn't happen because it's time-consuming. There is curriculum to be completed. There is, children to be taken somewhere. The other day I went somewhere to Gujarat and I went to a museum and I saw something like even a 3-year-old, 4-year-old brought to the museum. So I was asking the teachers, for what reason did you bring this 4-year-old to a museum, which is really adults even cannot fully appreciate? They said, no, they're just ticking it off. Like they have to take the children for an outing. So this kind of feeling, sense of responsibility, sense of nation building, your contribution to society, because you may not see it. What you do on a child today might be the child at 30, 40, 50 will start realizing and also contributing to society, nation building. So these kind of things must be inculcated in teachers, and among the teaching staff in any school, there will be 2 or 3 who are proactive.
At present, does the rehabilitation of a child involve parents, teachers?
Yeah, definitely. Rehabilitation involves parents, of course, are sometimes in denial. They don't think this child, because the child may be showing a bully may be showing another face, a very docile face. If he's being bullied by his father, mother, or older brother or older sibling, he's showing another face in the home and showing another face in the school, So parents are also cannot identify this behavior. So it takes a lot of time to get the confidence of the parents and say that this is what is happening, this is how your child is behaving in a very caring manner, because jointly teacher and parent are for the well-being of this child. But parents are also don't have the time, they don't want to come forward. So parents are also, if Mihir's parents had, I'm not blaming, I'm not saying, if they had seen some kind of a change of behavior and connected it to something that was happening in an environment outside the home, might be. But it's not easy, because children can also be a little, I won't say manipulative, they can change to the scene. I've seen children who behave particularly in front of one caretaker. Yeah, they will adjust to situations, children. They are very smart, especially the more intelligent they are, the more ability to maneuver around situations.
Right. Could you give an example of a child that you have come across in your career and who was a bully and then changed to, kind of got the best rehabilitation process possible and he was reinculcated into the society? Like, is
I would say that we tried. Suppose there's a child who's really misbehaving. We've had children who even try to molest children, molest children there. If you're seeing about 5 children molesting younger children, not the full sexual intercourse, but trying to do all sorts of things, the thing, We cannot take en masse and put them into the juvenile justice board. We cannot take them en masse and put them take them to the police station. So there has to be ways and means where you're able to quickly identify what is happening and then talk to these children and then able to do some counseling, making them understand what is happening, because they may not understand what is happening exactly to them. So there are many cases where children have been trying to molest others in a group environment. There have been children who have been stealing. Like, you have this, every child has got a kind of a box where they can keep their own particular their personal items. They go and steal that away from them. And then there are other kind of maladjustment behavior that you see in group setups in institutions and children. And even in families, you see that.
Another question that I have is about repressed feelings among children, right? A lot of children fail to tell their parents that they're feeling this in a particular way, so that in later stages they tend to be more aggressive. Is that right? Is that right to observe that children should get more freedom to like express themselves as they are? It can be aggressive.
Okay, I'll tell you. I've had many cases like this where, especially when there is parental conflict, and then there is some separation or divorce happening, and the child is, and then the parents of course come. So in that case, to understand what is happening in the family, what I have used is art therapy. I'm not an expert in art therapy, but there are some simple things that social workers can easily acquire, because children are not able to verbalize. Children, even at 14, 15, they don't even have that language to express some things. So what normally counselors do is they use art therapy, where you talk about a scene and get children to draw it. They may not be expert, even line drawings and all that. So even if this is brought in a group, the children are brought together in a group and they're made to express, interpreting that art, you understand the child is repressed, child is having, something. I had a case where a father and mother were wanting to split, and the child had to visit the mother in the court premise, father in the court premises once a month, and the child did not want to go there because the father did not really have much interaction, the only child. So I made this child draw this whole situation, scenery where, how is your family? And the child drew a big mother's figure and equally big child's figure, and this father was only a tiny minuscule little thing here. So I asked her, what is this? I showed this picture, and this child was able to explain that this father is nobody in her life. She's not interested in meeting the father. He does not offer anything that improves her happiness or makes her feel important, whereas the mother is such a big thing. So similarly, when there is some bullying, some repression happening, if you get these children to just draw it from the pictures, you can interpret. Children cannot express themselves. Even in the family, parents should all be knowing how to get a child to talk. Children sometimes don't talk, but you can get it from some drawing or something, or you put them into in a position like if a child is very fond of cricket, badminton, whatever game, take this child there, talk to this child informally, then things start coming out. But nobody has the time to do all this.
Even if the parents do it, there is a society, a larger world outside. So how can a larger section of public deal with this issue?
Say, for example, now Mihir's mother is so. There will be others who have suffered this kind of a tragedy, who have suffered this kind of a breakup in the family. They should all voluntarily come forward and say, I'm willing, come, let's talk together, let's see what has happened and help. And even within like what we had earlier in our institutional setup was a visitors committee in the community. Like suppose this is an institution with 30 children, 40 children, they used to find visitors who were living nearby, individuals, credible background, and ask them to come, talk to the children, have group work, talk to them, chat with them, and get to know the feeling of what it happened, and then recommend to the institution, recommend to the school. But everybody is so busy today, these are things that are very fine, but which are so important for the happiness, productivity, fulfillment of an adult. So this has to be sowed in at the level. So I think community has a very big role to play, and they must come forward and tell schools, we are here. Tell us what retired people, 60, 65, they retired. They can definitely participate. And it's not that it's not happening. It's not new I'm talking. It's already happening, but in a very minuscule manner. Larger society should come forward and do it.
Right. We were talking about immaturity earlier, right, among children. But do you think that is also present in the minds of adults as well, like the unhealed trauma of the past?
Yeah, that's exactly. You hit it
Yeah.
on the nail. A lot of unhealed trauma in adults, in
Mm.
parents, and they try to bring it out on the children, or they have repressed it themselves. They were bullied in those days. Sometimes there were large families. They are not you. They used to send one child to stay with grandfather. They used to send one child to stay with uncle, and then all sorts of things. Lots of repressed feelings, and people get over it. There's nobody I can say who has no repressed feelings. I mean, across the board, myself included. That's because you grow up in a family that they don't do it intentionally. Sometimes without knowing they do it. So I think that larger society must understand, like I told you, parenting training is very important. It's not that you just get a child and do it. Everyone must have parenting training. And this parent-teachers meeting should not be only on the academic progress of the child.
Not just on the grades.
Yeah, not the grades. It should be how you can improve parenting, how you can this thing. That is very, very important. Then within the education system itself, everyone should be brought on board. Security guard, the bus driver, everybody should be brought on board. And you should have a child protection policy. That is mandatory now. I hope every school, I've helped a few schools to prepare this child protection policy. What is the response? Who's the respondent? How do you put these boards everywhere? This is not allowed, that is not allowed. How you have a box where you can just drop in, messages anonymous saying this is what happening. All the child protection policy in schools is mandatory, it should be there. And an external voice should also be there to see what is happening. But everybody does it. I have also seen it happening. It's all what you call naam ke vaste. Nobody really takes it seriously.
Right. I think that brings us to the end of the interview.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And I hope more and more people come forward to support Mihir and this campaign and his family in particular.